I just want to talk about the vampires some more. Did you talk to Miss Stauch about her experience with vampires during your forensic interview?
I did.
Tell the jury about that.
Wait, how? Okay, when she was doing this, when she was talking with this forensic psychologist, how long after her being accused or arrested did she come up with this vampire story? Oh God, hold on. Accused stepson killer Letissue Stauch mentioned vampires in her forensic interview, saying she got the names for the movie Twilight. She also mentioned Tupac, telling psychologists she did not believe the late rapper was dead. Letissue allegedly killed her stepson Gannon in Colorado. Oh my God. Is this when she was trying to like go for the insanity plea?
Ms. Stauch introduced a vampire called Justice. She said that there was a button in her cell that she could summon Justice Jasper.
Oh yeah, this is when she was already arrested. Yep, she was like, you know what? I can't get out of this. Let me just plead insanity.
Perhaps Patrick, if I remember correctly. She said she had been introduced to vampires when she lived in Alaska previously, and they used to go door to door like Jehovah's Witnesses. And
Letissue still got her head down. You would think she would perk up and listen to this.
She didn't really offer them in any kind of meaningful way, like wasn't explaining anything or trying to use that information necessarily, but she certainly referenced them throughout the interview.
Did she tell you where she got these names for these so-called vampires she's talking about?
She directed me to the movie Twilight.
And did you find out that these names were from the movie Twilight or the book series involved in Twilight?
Wait, she couldn't be creative enough to come up with a vampire name. She had to use Edward Cullen and like, what were the other vampires again? There was like, I don't remember any of the vampire names. Dude, I actually did read all of Twilight. Okay, I read all 3 or 4 books of Twilight. I don't remember the rest of the characters.
Yeah, a few of them for sure. I'm not familiar with the series myself, but I Googled. She talked about a vampire council, and the name of the council was taken directly from that series. And then a couple of the names for sure came from there as well.
Oh my God.
And is that something that would be common with someone who has dissociative?
So what did we learn today, guys? Letissue Stauch is an avid fan of the Twilight series. Stephanie Myers, where are you at? You out here, Stephanie Myers?
Identity disorder, that they would be able to tell you exactly where the names of other personalities came from and things like that.
Are you drawing a connection between the vampires and DID? Because I got a bit confused there.
No, I'll ask you a different question. What relevance, if any, did that have in your evaluation? The fact that she's talking about vampires that came from a movie.
Well, certainly if somebody's talking about vampires and that appears real to them, that could signify that they're experiencing a mental illness. So I looked further to see, I'm looking for consistency again. So it was notable that she said that she had been interfacing with these vampires since Alaska, but she made no mention of them to the previous evaluators. And she also didn't mention them throughout her jail stay until several months in.
Oh, as if she's just making the story up as she goes along with it.
I think I lost track of your question. I'm sorry.
Well, what's the significance?
Letissue was tired of Al. She wanted to trade Alan for Edward Cullen.
It's one thing to say that I talk to vampires and I see vampires. What's the significance of her saying clarification? Well, these vampires came from a movie.
Right. So that's not consistent with a mental illness. It sounded like a fabrication. If people are talking to vampires, I would expect them to have their own unique aspects to them and something unique to the individual that would make sense in a greater scheme of how they see the world. And it just seemed like she was conveying a
Oh, she really can't stop embarrassing herself. Oh, my Lord.
story essentially from fiction.
And did she bring this up on her own, or did you ask her questions that might trigger that answer?
I didn't ask her any questions about vampires initially.
And I forget the term you used to describe how she was talking to you, but she likes to talk, for lack of a better way to say it, right?
Yes.
Would she just volunteer information to you and change
She goes, that was Voldemort, I'm out.
as you're talking to her?
She didn't change subjects a whole lot. I didn't get the impression from her that she wasn't following my line of thought. She was telling a coherent story. She just gave far more information than was necessary to answer the question.
Okay. Did you perform any psychological testing with Miss Stauch?
I administered 2 measures to assess for genuine responding for her mental illness symptoms.
And what were those measures?
The MFAST, which is a Miller Forensic Assessment of Symptoms test, and the SIRS-2, which is a structured interview of reported symptoms.
And what were the results of those psychological tests?
So she exceeded the cutoff on the MFAST. It's a screening measure for feigning. And feigning means the intentional exaggeration or production of mental illness symptoms. So she crossed over the threshold, indicating that she might in fact be feigning. But because it's a screening measure and it wasn't 100% sure, I gave another more comprehensive measure. On that measure, there's several scales. It looks at different aspects of feigning. Are you reporting symptoms that you're not manifesting observable behavior of? Are you reporting inconsistent symptoms, rare combinations of symptoms? So she just elevated one scale on that test, suggesting probable feigning, but on the test
Probable
overall, it was
feigning?
indeterminate.
In your report, it indicates
Laura's like,
that
indeterminate my
she
ass.
yielded a total score of 12. Do you remember what test that was on?
That was on the MFAST.
And what does that mean to you as a psychologist?
So the cutoff in the manual is 6. So if you score anything above 6, it's presumed feigning. But because it's a screening measure, there's a lot of false positives. So they suggest you do more testing. Unless, so it's out of 25. If somebody scores over 16, it's like 100% rate of also elevating the SIRS. So at 16, you don't have to give the SIRS as well. So 12, it was certainly elevated. I had concerns, but I wanted to be thorough. I didn't want to just, it's a very prejudicial term to say somebody's feigning or malingering.
Sure.
So I just was being prudent.
Well, in your report, you indicate that such a score is highly suggestive of malingered psychopathology and indicates the need for further assessment. What did you mean by that?
And that's taken from the manual. So because it is high, most people don't get that score by accident. However, because it's a screening measure, it's not very sensitive.
Can't put my finger on it, but I think these vampire stories might be made up.
You're going to get false
Maybe.
positives. It's going to,
Might be.
people are going to look like
Possibly.
they're feigning when they're not feigning in that scoring range. So that's why more testing is done.
What does the term malingering mean?
Malingering, excuse me.
Synonymous with Letissue.
Malingering is like feigning, where you're intentionally exaggerating your symptoms. But with malingering, there's an added element of the presumption of trying to obtain a secondary gain.
Did you see that in this case?
It certainly seemed that Ms. Stauch was presenting symptoms that she didn't appear to have. I can never know if somebody is trying to achieve a goal or not. So I didn't offer an opinion.
You do deep down inside, but it's okay. She's trying to be professional here.
But certainly there was.
See, we're not
suggestions that
professional,
she was
guys.
not
We don't have to be
impaired, she was
professional. We can
portraying.
talk shit about Letissue Stauch all we want. She's
Did you
malingering.
diagnose Ms. Stauch with anything or any mental disorder out of the DSM-5 as a result of your competency evaluation?
My diagnostic impressions were that she had some personality dysfunction,
Okay.
both with traits of borderline personality and narcissistic personality, but not meeting threshold for either full disorder. And I offered a rule out of PTSD versus an unspecified anxiety disorder.
Okay.
I just didn't have enough information. And given that it wasn't a clinical information and I wasn't there to help her, I didn't want to probe too much into her trauma.
Did that have any impact on your ultimate conclusion with regard to competency, either of these diagnoses?
Well,
She's doomed. Yeah, she was doomed to begin with. I don't know. There was no, not even Casey Anthony's lawyer would be able to help her out of this. Doomed. Doomed, I tell you.
those diagnoses would not really reach the threshold of a mental disability.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the only thing that she hasn't tried yet, she hasn't tried to blame the 7-year-old sister. Okay, Gannon Stauch had a younger sister. She hasn't tried to blame the sister yet. Because that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she gets there at some point. You know what? It wasn't me. The sister was home the entire time. She was there during the time of the murder. It was the sister.
Is that why you didn't go
Only
further
Edward
and
can
try to
save her
rule out
now?
post-traumatic stress?
Whether or not she had post-traumatic stress, she did not demonstrate functional impairment as it related to competency. So for my purposes, it wasn't important.
Okay. So what does it mean when you say other specified personality disorder with borderline and narcissistic features? Can you break that down for the jury?
Yes, tell us
So
more about
personality
that.
disorders, just like other clinical disorders, have certain criteria that need to be met, and you have to have so many. I believe there might be 7, and you have to have 5 of 7 for each one.
Okay.
So in my impressions of her, she had a couple of features of our borderline personality disorder.
What did you miss about vampires? Oh, man. So apparently, after being in prison for a couple of months, she decided to concoct this story with this forensic psychologist. And in the evaluation, she talks about vampires. She talks about how vampires approach her in Alaska. But then the forensic psychologist was like, wait a second, the names of these vampires sound, they sound kind of familiar. Wait a second, are these the characters from Twilight? And not only that, I guess she talks about Tupac and says that the rapper wasn't dead or something like that. I don't know.
Disorder. She was impulsive. She had some kind of push-pull relationships. I don't know what Dr. Moore testified to yesterday, but there was insisting that she saw Dr. Moore, and then Dr. Moore would show up and she'd refuse to see her. That's quite consistent with a borderline personality. And the same for narcissistic personality. Those features are typically a sense of entitlement, grandiosity, a lack of empathy are 3 big ones. Ms. Stauch told me on 2 occasions during the interview that she lacked empathy and she didn't experience people's thoughts and feelings.
I could see that, yeah, because all she cared about was herself. You know, when Al's dad was trying to figure, when Al was trying to figure where Gannon was, she was like, "What about our relationship? What about us? What about me?"
She had grandiosity throughout our meeting where she, grandiosity. Thank you. Throughout our meeting where she touted her accomplishments, her intellect.
She touted her accomplishments, y'all. She touted her intellect. Oh my God, Letissue, you're so smart. I might like it. I probably would. I just, I don't know. It kind of sucks that it's not cross-platform. We can't play together. Boo.
Was refusing to meet with people that didn't have the highest credentials. She didn't want to meet with social workers. She wanted to meet with people with higher degrees in order to talk about her problems.
Wow. Wait, seriously? So she was saying like, oh, no. You're not smart enough. You're not accomplished enough to talk to me. I only want to talk to Stanford, Harvard doctors, okay? Where'd you go? Where'd you go again? No, I want to talk to the smart of the smart people because I'm smart. Only smart recommend the smart people.
Wasn't sure that she met all the criteria for the disorder, so I was just trying to convey my goal in an evaluation is to try to help the person reading it experience what I experienced meeting with her, and her personality was very much at the forefront of our interactions, so that's what I was trying to convey.
Where the ring girl at?
Did she ever refer to you as being an actress?
She made a comment. She said, "I think you're an actor," and then she just continued talking to me like she didn't really have the concern.
Oh,
Was
okay.
that about the time you were introducing yourself and saying what your role?
I thought Letissue said, "Hey, you know, I was an actress in Twilight. I was that one extra. You know, just how Charlie says he's an extra in Hunger Games."
role was, or at what point did that come up?
No, it was somewhere in the middle.
Okay. There's a couple things I want to talk about. The borderline, the personality disorder diagnosis that you
There's a Genshin impact too. No, I don't think so.
have in your report. Are you familiar with the term transient episodes of psychosis?
Yes.
What is that, and what does that mean?
Well, transient means it comes and goes.
Okay.
The psychosis, per the DSM, the psychosis that can go along with borderline personality disorder is typically related to fears of abandonment. The disorder itself is an attachment disorder where people, the primary goal is to not feel abandoned. So there's these desperate attempts to keep people in your life, at the same time pushing them away. So the transient episodes of psychosis that the DSM refers to is kind of a paranoia about abandonment that might manifest like you text your loved one, they don't text back as quickly as you think they should, and you start thinking that they're leaving you, and then you go into a spiral.
That's me in my early 20s and mid 20s. Holy shit. That's a tough thing to get over. It's turn-based? Definitely not. I hate turn-based. She looks more possessed and she's crazy. Yeah, she kind of looks like the ring girl over there, you know? She got her hair and everything.
Thinking that the relationship is over, and then they text you again and they were busy, and then you're like, oh, I'm fine now. That would be considered a transient episode of paranoia.
Okay. Seems like that's pretty common, at least. I hear about that on occasion. Did you see any of that with Ms. Stout during your evaluation?
No.
Is that something that are you capable of ruling that out as a symptom or being anything to do with Ms. Stout?
It wasn't something I observed during my interview. She has personality dysfunction that I wouldn't say I would rule it out as ever being possible happening. I didn't see it firsthand.
So it didn't come up?